What's going on, guys? Back up here at Grafton Archery, bringing you another archery review today. And the long-awaited drum roll, please. Brand new Mathews lift, 29.5. All right, guys, so the new Mathews lift, 29.5, finally came into the shop today. I'm reviewing these bows tonight. I'm probably gonna be pulling a 24-hour shift, trying to get these videos out there to you guys tomorrow when the bows actually release. I think there's actually been some leaked footage. I'm sure you all know who I'm talking about that has gotten out there, but I have in my hand the brand new lift. Now I'm going to say this, you guys know, if you've watched my videos, you guys know I'm shooting Hoyt. I'm not going to tell you if I like this bow better than the Hoyts. You might hear some comparisons because that's the newest bows that I've shot has been the Hoyts. But I can tell you this is by far, not this bow specifically, but the lifts in general are by far my favorite Mathews in a long time. So stay tuned on this video because I've got a lot of cool stuff to talk to you about, and this is a sweet shooting bow. So let's go ahead and talk about the specs before we get into actually shooting the bow. The specs are going to be pretty similar, all but one or two specs as last year. You got 29.5 inches axle to axle. You got 6-inch brace height. This is where it starts getting different. 3.99 pounds. Y'all, this bow is lighter than the carbon. It's lighter than the RX-8 carbon bow. You can tell in the riser when you see this riser how much meat they have taken out of this riser, but y'all, I'm telling you, the vibration is ridiculous. The silence in this bow is ridiculous, or I should say lack of vibration is ridiculous. Vibration-wise, 100%, this bow is better than the Phase 4. So just putting that out there. 3.99 pounds with everything on it, with the QAD Ultra Rest, the little SCS system for your pull-up rope, and with the little stabilizer ball, or not, sorry, vibration dampener on the bottom, and the quiver brackets. This bow actually came, the way they ordered it, it came with a quiver. I just took the quiver off, the brackets are on it. I got 4.3 pounds. So I'm going to say this bow weighs 3.99 pounds because Mathews clearly puts in their book that they weigh it with nothing on the bow, no dampeners, no nothing. So 3.99 pounds, y'all, I'm telling you, when you just grab this bow, you can 100% tell it is way lighter than last year's bows. Draw weight, 55, 65, 70, 75, and 80. The reason it's broken up like that is because this cam module is going to be essentially the same as the cross-centric cams, whereas you buy a different mod to adjust your weight. Once you get that mod, that bow is adjustable from 55 to about 45, or like 70 to 60. You can go down, you're not going to go up. IBO speed on this bow is up to 348. Draw lengths 24.5 to 30. And their new cam is what they're calling the Switch Weight X cam. When you look at this cam, it's completely redesigned. It's a lot different shaped. It's a way different cam from the last couple years of bows. So like I said, Switch Weight X. Let off on this bow is 80 to 85%. But I can tell you right now, this bow does not have quite the valley that the last couple of years of Mathews has. 80 to 85%, I've got the 85% mods on this bow. Colors, it comes in 12 options this year. They have a new option called Fade to Black, and this new color is called Earth. This is their newest solid color. But the Fade to Black, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are. I don't care for it. It's like say a tan limb on top and tan top fading into black at the bottom and black set of limbs. Kind of reminds me of an old Quest color scheme almost. If you remember the G5 or the Prime, I don't remember who branded it, but if you remember those Quest bows, the color they had. Some new technology on this bow that Mathews deemed necessary to put in their catalog. The SWX cams, which we talked about. Top axles. So this is a completely new design to Mathews. I've never seen anything like it. These limbs are super thin. I mean, they are thin, almost scary thin, and they flex like crazy. You'll see that in the video as I draw back how much these limbs flex. It's a pretty sweet looking system. I'm interested to see how durable these limbs are over time. I'm sure Mathews wouldn't put them out if they're not going to be durable. And if they do have issues, I'm sure Mathews will make it right. But these limbs are super, super thin. The RPD limbs, they're calling them the redesigned RPD limbs for better shot efficiency, better speeds, less vibration. Shot sense compatible. This is a new grip, or it feels new to me. Like it feels flatter than the last rendition of the grips. But they have something on here called Shot Sense. I'm assuming it's like, I've seen it in the catalog. I don't know 100% about it, but it's a device that goes on your grip that tells you like shot angle and all that other stuff. So if that's something that you're interested in, this does have that. And I'm sure somebody on here is going to know a whole lot more about that than I do. So I'm not claiming to be a professional. I'm just trying to bring you some reviews. Match grade or match bowstrings. This is the new match bowstrings from Mathews. Hoyt and Mathews both have a brand new string system this year. This is the new, and they have the new engaged limb legs. So if you liked the limb legs from Mathews, these new ones are pretty dang sweet, but they won't fit older model bows. They'll only fit this year and newer. They're like half the weight. They're super light, and I'll do a video on those as well. But in this video, we're talking about the bow. All right, so enough on the specs. Let's shoot this bow. So as always, 27-inch draw, 70 pounds on the dot. Let's shoot this thing. Look how smooth that is. Now watch this. This is what is really impressing me. This is the first time I've This is the first time I've ever been able to do this. Watch this. Look how easy that is to let down. Last couple years of bows, because I think this got to do with the lack of valley, or not lack of valley, but a smaller valley or shallower valley, right? There's no drop off. Watch this. Listen how quiet that bow is. I figured out I had to shoot this beside the Hoyts, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because I kept feeling like this bow might be slightly louder. But I figured out what I was hearing. I'm hearing the click and the drop from the QAD, and the Hoyt I have set up with a whisker biscuit. So another thing to keep in mind when I talk about the speeds, you're going to be about 3 feet a second different on speed versus what it would be if I had a biscuit on here. So don't start hating me on my speeds. Watch this, how smooth this draw is. I've never been able to draw a Mathews that smoothly since they've went to a dual cam system. Now their old solo cams were pretty smooth. Guys, I'm telling you, that bow shoots so good. If you can't already tell, I'm very impressed with this bow from Mathews. This is one of those, I rarely come in the shop where I'm like, wow. Well, this bow has really wowed me. And it just drops back. Now, that's what I'm saying about the valley though. If you draw it back, you just barely start letting down. If you're not ready to go, it'll take you down. But if you're specifically trying to be easy with it, it's not bad. It's really comparable to this year's Hoyts. This year's Hoyts have more of a valley than they have had in the past. They have a more solid back wall, but you can also feel that drop off a little bit on the back of the draw cycle. This bow's draw cycle, I would say comparatively, it feels like you can draw more weight on the Hoyt than you can on this bow. But this bow is so right, I'm trying to get it to drop off right there. That's all it is. This bow on the back end it just falls right into place. All right, listen to this. I'm gonna really grip this bow. It's very balanced. To me, it feels really balanced, especially for a 29.5-inch bow, and we'll get into why that is. God, that bow is so quiet. There's just a slight bit of hand shock in this bow, very slight. In my opinion, it's less than the Phase 4, so if you shot the Phase 4, that's just a reference there. So let me put this bow down, write some numbers down, and let's talk about what I think about this bow. All right, so let's talk about the specs. Shootability, I got an 8. I know that's a lot. That's a really high score for such a short bow, but I'll get into that in just a second. Tunability, Mathews really doesn't have great tunability options, so I'm giving them a 5, middle of the road. Draw cycle, giving this bow an 8. That's a really high score for me for a Mathews. Noise and vibration, I'm giving it a 9. Speed, I'm giving it an 8. Balance, I am giving it, what did I put, an 8. Back wall, a 9. Weight, an 8. Fit and finish, I don't normally do this. I say this all the time. I'm not going to give somebody a 10, but these bows look so good. I'm giving them a 10. I got to. And then for price, this bow gets a 6. It's going to retail for $1,200. All right. So let's talk about some things. So shootability. So one thing you'll notice with this bow, the riser on this bow is ridiculous how long this riser is for a 29.5-inch bow. So in something for a reference, my RX-7 Ultra is a 34-inch axle-to-axle bow. The riser on this bow is slightly longer than my riser on my 34-inch RX-7 Ultra. I love that RX-7 Ultra for how accurate that bow is. That's why I gave this bow such a high score. It's got a shorter brace height. It's got a 6-inch brace height. Yeah, it's got a 29.5-inch axle-to-axle. But when you look at how this bow is designed and the riser length on this bow, I think that's going to make up for the shortness of axle-to-axle and shortness of brace height. So yes, I did give it a higher score than probably what most people would for a 29.5, but that's why. Tunability, it's real simple. You got to change your mods out. It's a specific mod to your draw length. So there's good pros and cons to that. I think you keep your speeds up even in your shorter draw lengths by doing that. But at the same time, it's a pain in the butt if you just need a little adjustment. If you just need that 1/4 inch like most of the new bows have, you don't have that option. You just have to twist your strings and cables to get your 1/4 inch out of it. So you got to have a bow press. Another thing is this still got the shim systems in the cams. It shims your cams right and left. You still have to have a press for that. But that's why I give this bow a 5. It's not bad. It's just middle of the road. It's not great in any stretch of the imagination, but with that being said, overall, most of the time we don't have an issue with Mathews really needing to be tuned a whole lot. They're normally pretty forgiving bows. Draw cycle. Like I stated before, the draw cycle is stiffer, maybe not stiffer. It feels like you're pulling more weight on the front end than a Hoyt does, but it's so smooth into that back wall. There's literally no drop off hardly at all on that draw cycle. It just draws back and sets right into place. So at 30 inches when I shot this bow, I felt like it had more of a valley than it does at 27. I don't know why. It could just be the way I had it held because 30 inches is so long for me, but that's kind of how I felt on this bow. But with the actual draw cycle itself, it's excellent. It is absolutely excellent for a Mathews bow. I love the draw cycle. Noise and vibration. Like I said before, this bow is just ever so slightly quieter than the Hoyts, and I thought the Hoyts were quieter than last year's Mathews. This year's bows are definitely by far the quietest bows I've ever heard shot. This bow is quieter than the Mathews. Quieter than the Hoyt just slightly, but this bow is quite a bit faster at my draw length than the Hoyts were, and we'll get into that here in a minute. I think that's why it's so close. I think if I cranked this thing down, a lighter weight on the limbs and made the speeds the same, I think this thing would be significantly quieter. Speed, I gave this bow an 8. We'll get into speed. Let's go ahead and talk about it while we're talking about this stuff. Speed-wise, with a 27-inch draw and 30-inch draw, these are the numbers I got. 70 pounds, 350, 425, and 513. Same arrows that I shoot in all my tests. Granted, this bow and the other Mathews that I'm going to show you here in a minute all have the Q80 integrates on them. So comparatively to the Hoyts, about 3 feet a second difference because the Hoyts had a biscuit on it. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at my reviews. Don't bash me because I had a ultra rest on the Mathews. That's just what came on them, the way the guys at the shop ordered them. So that's why I did that. 27-inch draw, 27-inch draw, I got 310. Comparatively to the Alpha X, I'm wanting to say that my numbers were 296 here. So roughly 14 feet a second difference. That's pretty big. Now, it'll change a little bit as we go to 30 inches, but that's a big difference for guys like myself with a shorter draw length. 425 grain arrow, I got 284. Big difference. I think I was at like 268 or 271 or something like that with the other bow. And I can't remember what I had on the Alpha X for the 513 grain arrow, but I got 259 on here. I think I was in like the mid 240s with that bow. Okay, at 30 inches, I got 334. If you'll look back at my other video, I got 332 or 333 on the Alpha X 30. So there's not that big of a difference at that draw length. That's pretty key. That's why I like shooting these bows at different draw lengths. 306 is identical to what I shot with the Alpha X, and 282 is identical to what I shot with the Alpha X, if I can remember correctly. But those numbers were very similar to what Hoyt said, which is lower than what Mathews is saying. Now, granted, don't get me wrong. I know not every chronograph is right, so just take these numbers with a grain of salt. That just gives you a reference. If I shoot through the same chronograph on all my tests, that gives you a reference to say X bow is faster or slower than Y bow. That's why I do that. Don't take these numbers as concrete. That's just a reference. So when you go through my videos, you can kind of reference what's faster and slower. So with that being said, I gave it an 8 on speed. Balance, I gave this bow an 8. This bow just feels so balanced in your hand. It's ridiculous how, the Hoyts felt great too, but when you this bow to me, comparatively to the last several years of Mathews, this bow just feels so good. Back wall. The last several years have had great back walls. This bow's no different. You get it back and it's there. You can pull on that thing as hard as you want to and it's not going anywhere. With that being said, just keep in mind what I said about the valley. That kind of goes in not so much with the back wall, but that's just part of the shooting of this bow. It just has a little bit less valley. Weight, I already said it. This bow is so light. When aluminum bow is lighter than the carbon bow, but yet it doesn't have the hand shock and it's quiet, they've really hit a home run with the weight reductions on this bow. It's phenomenal. It's literally half a pound lighter than last year's bows in the same size with a longer riser. The riser is so long. And then fit and finish. I don't normally do it, but I gave this bow a 10. The fit and finish on these bows is phenomenal. Mathews has that down. The looks, if you just like a good looking bow, They all look good for the most part, but these Mathews just look so streamlined and sleek. And then price, retail on this bow is going to be around $1,200, I believe. So gave this bow a 6. If you go to a specific color option, like a different upgraded color, it's $1,250. So then you'd be in that 5-point range. But just base model, what you get, give it a 6 because it's at that $1,200 mark. So that gives us a total of 79 points. And so far, I really like these bows. Like Mathews they always innovate in a certain way. In the last couple of years, they've just kind of just revamped an old system, or not old, but they've revamped one of their older systems. So kind of a roundup overview of this bow. The lift, 29.5. Love this bow. I've been super impressed so far. Have not shot this bow at distance. So just like with all my bows, or all the bows I review, I try to review them straight out of the box, the way they come. Just put a D-loop on them, kind of get the rest set up and go from there. And that's how I did this bow. It's no different. Slight hand shock, very little, super quiet, great balance. Not your typical Mathews draw cycle. You definitely need to come up here and shoot these bows. This bow has just such a great draw. I mean, for a hunting bow, I don't think you can beat the draw cycle on this bow. I think this bow is going to really be a great seller to tree stand hunters. I think it's going to be a great seller to guys that have a shorter draw length like myself. That's going to kind of be the market that I think this bow really hits. I think this will be a great bow for a female, or you can get it down to 55 pounds. So you can back that down to about 50. So I think for younger shooters that can't draw so much weight, this bow might be a great option. So with that being said, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like I always say, please like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. I enjoy bringing them to you, but it is a lot of work. I work a full-time job in the Air Force outside of doing this. So nights like tonight are going to be long nights, and I'm good with it. As long as you guys enjoy this content, I hope you do. I hope you got something out of it. Give these guys a call up at Grafton Archery at 704-855-1300. The new bows are rolling in like crazy. And like I say, you guys, remember to live your life to the fullest. Use your passions to bless others. Hit that like and subscribe button. We'll catch you on the next video.